what's up everybody? I'm Sean and I'm the student minister at Orange Beach UMC in Orange Beach, Alabama. Have you ever experienced something that was so amazing and so awesome that you have a hard time explaining it to other people? If you have something like that, drop it in the comments. I have a couple examples. One of my favorite worship songs ever recorded live is With Everything by Hillsong off of Passion's Awakening album. Every time I hear it, it's like there's this wave of energy that just comes coursing through me. But my wife, she was there when that song was recorded. She was literally front row. And she's like, I hate to break it to you, but the recording is great, but you really had to be there to experience how amazing it really was. Another example would be whenever we were traveling up to Memphis in the middle of the night, and we stopped in the middle of nowhere just to stretch our legs. And it was pitch black outside, and we looked up, and I have never seen so many stars. It was so dark out there that you could see the Milky Way with your naked eye. I didn't even try to take a picture of it because I knew there was no way I could capture how amazing that moment was. There's just some things in life you can't explain. They need to be experienced. And during Christmas, it's almost impossible not to hear about the birth of Jesus. You hear a lot of stories, you see a lot of movies about Santa Claus, snowmen, elves, and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't matter who you are. You can't avoid hearing about how this baby named Jesus was born on Christmas Day. And maybe you've noticed that church people, they're a little bit more into it than others. Like not into it like your neighbor across the street who like puts up Christmas lights and they're like really excited about Christmas. But like church people, they're into it on a totally different level. And maybe whenever you see people like that, maybe you're not sure if you're into Christmas like they are. Maybe you just don't understand what the big deal is about Christmas. And maybe there's a really good reason why you don't get it. Maybe you've had people tell you the story about Christmas and about how life-changing the birth of Jesus was. But then you look at the lives of those people and you kind of notice that their life isn't all that life-changing. Maybe those people don't even treat other people that well. So maybe you think to yourself, why would the Christmas story be that big of a deal if it doesn't really have an effect on my life? Or maybe you've heard the Christmas story used as a way of explaining how God is good. But then you look at life, you look at 2020, you look at the lives of people around you. Life is hard. Life isn't always good. So how can the story of Jesus being born on Christmas Day be an expression of God's love and goodness towards mankind? I don't know if any of that rings true to you, but what I'm asking you to do is for the next couple minutes, keep an open mind, stick with me, and maybe begin to rethink what this Christmas story means. Because in reality, this is more than just a story. This is history. When we talk about Mary, Joseph, Jesus, shepherds, and wise men, we're talking about real people who were experiencing real things in a real place at a real time. They weren't expecting God in the flesh to show up that night, but he did. So put yourself in their story. What would you do if you found out that God in the flesh came to your city tonight and you were personally invited to come see him for yourself? What would you think? What would you say? What would you do? I want to take a moment to open up the Bible and I want to read this story through. And I'll be reading from a book in the Bible called Luke. I'll be reading from chapter 2 and I'll be starting in the first verse. At that time, the Roman Emperor Augustus decreed that a census should be taken throughout the Roman Empire. This was the first census taken when Quirinius was governor of Syria. All returned to their own ancestral towns to register for this census. And because Joseph was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. He took with him Mary, to whom he was engaged, who was now expecting a child. And while they were there, the time came for her baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger, because there was no lodging available for them. Let me ask you this. If you were the God of the universe, and you were to come down to earth, and you were going to make your presence known to the entire world, how would you do it? My guess is that you would at least come dressed. We don't even go to Target without taking a shower and looking nice. But when the God of the universe chose to come to earth, he came as a baby, naked, small, helpless. He was completely dependent on others for his own survival. That was how God showed up in the world. For almost all of human history, people imagined God to be this big, scary being who needed to be appeased. But then God showed up as a baby to show that he was humble and that he was kind. He showed up as a baby to let you and me know that he really does get us. He really does understand us. Think about this for a second. God showed up in our world the same way that you and me showed up in our world. Isn't that an amazing thought? He could have came down with fire and lightning and riding a unicorn, but he chose to experience life the way that we experience life. He wanted to know what it felt like to be wrapped in our skin, to feel betrayal, to feel pain, to feel sadness, to know the feeling of being rejected by other people, to be rejected by family. But he would also know what it felt like to have a small group of friends that you loved and supported. He would know the joy of helping those in need. Sure, he would get to experience all the negative things that it means to be human, but he also got to experience all the joys. I guarantee you Jesus knew how to throw a party. So if you ever wonder if God knows you or loves you, if you ever wondered if God understands you or know what it's like to be in your shoes, he does. And the Christmas story is proof of that. Just look at what the book of Luke continues to say. That night there were shepherds staying in the fields nearby, guarding their flocks of sheep. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them. They were terrified. But an angel reassured them. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people." I love that term, great joy. And I don't know what you've heard about God. Maybe what you've heard doesn't sound like good news or great joy to anybody. And if that's the case, my guess is you were told wrong. Because the message of Christmas is exactly what the angel said. It's good news, it's great joy for everybody. The shepherds, being the first ones told that Jesus is born, couldn't make that point any clearer. Nobody enjoyed being a shepherd. It was a dirty job. You smelled like sheep. No one wanted to sit by you. You were outside all the time. You're sweating. Nobody wanted to be a shepherd. And we still have those type of people today. There's people in our schools, there's people in our family that nobody wants to be friends with, that nobody wants to be associated with, that no one pays attention to. Those are the type of people that God chose to tell first. And the reason why I believe the Christmas story is because you can't make up a story like this. No one would ever make up a story about God showing up on earth like this, as a baby, naked, helpless, dependent on his own creation to survive. If we wrote the story, the first ones to know would be kings, would be the famous people, would be the person with the most Instagram followers, would be the most viral person on TikTok. We wouldn't tell the shepherds. And when the shepherds found out that Jesus had been born in their city, they immediately got up and they went to go look for him. And when they found baby Jesus, they were completely amazed by what they found. They couldn't believe it. And when they left, they were praising God, and they left with this feeling that they just experienced something that will change their life forever. And I don't know what you're feeling in this moment. Maybe you don't feel nothing at all. But as you're listening to this Christmas story, I'd like to encourage you to follow the example of the shepherds. Go see for yourself. I can sit here all day long and tell you about Jesus and tell you about how he can make a difference in your life and how he's made a difference in my life. But you'll never know if that's true if you don't go and see for yourself. So how can you do that? Number one, keep showing up. If you have a real interest about who this Jesus is, keep showing up to invitations to know him more. Maybe it's going to church on Sundays or going to student worship on Wednesdays, watching church online, whatever it is. Keep showing up to the invitation to know more about this Jesus. And the second thing is keep asking questions. Never be afraid to ask questions or to present doubt. There's no question off the table. No one expects you to have all the answers. No one expects you to have it all figured out. Find someone you can bring questions to. It might be a parent, a pastor, a friend, a group of people, whatever it is. Never be scared to ask questions. Keep exploring, keep discovering, and see for yourself. I want you to experience it for yourself. I want you to think for yourself. I want you to be able to decide for yourself that Jesus is who he says he is. And what if you did these things? What if you kept showing up? What if you kept asking questions and you experienced something for yourself? What if instead of taking my word for it or your grandparents' word for it, you knew it was true because you've experienced it? How would that change 2021 for you? So as you head out and you think about these things, feel free to contact us. There's lots of ways to do that. You can do it on Instagram at OBUMC Students. You can email me at sean@orangebeachumc.org, or you can text the word Jesus to 251-210-9156 to start a conversation about who Jesus is. Thank you so much for staying with me and watching. I hope you have an amazing Christmas. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.